everyone. Welcome to another EOD Talks episode of Interview Tips series. In this episode, we try and learn more about the general management hiring process and the nuances that should be kept in mind for the upcoming summers. While appearing for the video, what all things did my batchmates kept in mind is something that we will try to understand. So without further ado, let's dive in. Hello guys, welcome. So just to know, you have all gone through the rigorous process. So let's discuss piece by piece what all did you do prior to your placements to prepare specifically for the general management role, and was it dominated by your spec preparation or did you do something else for it? I think you can start.
Alright, so luckily in marketing what happens is your spec related or your technicals are already covered extensively, so you don't really have to put in too much effort into revising and all of those things or getting in depths of it. So that was sorted for me. What I focused on was also visiting the PNG 64, not kind of taking it all in or learning each and every word of my PNG 64 questions, but just understanding which scenario to answer and when, and just having my scenarios right. That was one thing. Then the second thing was CV, which, unfortunately, I came to very late in the entire process. But understanding each and every word that you have written and preparing 3-level deep questions and answers of those questions I think is very crucial. And then lastly is your confidence in how you are appearing in those interviews and how lively you are, and all those things matter. So those are the basic, I think, touch points.
Anyone would like to add, Atul?
Yeah, so hi, my name is Atul, by the way, firstly. So from my point, I am an IM student by end. So by preparing for consulting, I had felt more on a GenMan side. It has already helped me because it has helped me structure my thoughts and getting better answers out of every point that I written in my CV as well. And then for a GD standpoint, I'm in a PPC member as well, so I've been participating in mock JDs and conducting also them. So I do get a perspective as to how people think and how to read the room, particularly in that point. And then again, talking about CV, yes, CV preparation really helped me a lot. But again, the question that was asked me in the actual interview was way deep than what I had prepared for. Like, I was a full stack developer. I mentioned my CV. I was asked about quick sort as a methodology. I had no clue they were going to ask me, and I was not at all prepared for that.
Okay. Anyone?
Yeah, so I think that we have mostly covered what needs to be prepared in terms of coming to the interview part, but it is mostly yes that CV is the most important thing that we should all prepare. At least level 3 deep they go, and they can deviate from the main question, from the main point to anything. So for example, I had a very project of digital transformation, and they have taken it out of context and they started asking me about developing a business model for the product itself. So it went way beyond the scope of the project itself, but they were trying to see what kind of business acumen we had or I had as a person. So I think that what a general management company is trying to look at you as how holistically developed the person is, how holistically developed their mind is, and it's not just limited to the specification itself. They would want someone who is having the knowledge of all marketing, ops, IM, and everything, a little bit of everything. So I think that the CV must be like thoroughly prepared along with the PNG 64 question, because they are, at the end of the day, they are looking for general managers.
And another thing that I would like to highlight is when you're preparing your CV, it should not only be focused towards your spec. So if you're adding some projects, they can be from various, like you can add one ops or one IM or something that includes diversity, that you are flexible in shifting between various roles. And second, for GenMan company, they also look how well versed you are with the general knowledge which is happening around you with respect to the company, as well as any general news that is happening. So you can also be questioned about these things in the interview.
Yeah, I think two more points that I would want to add is, one, you should really focus on your introduction because every company is going to ask that, and there's a common consensus around how many hooks you should have, but I think it should sound really good to you, and it should be very, as I think Rishikesh mentioned, holistic is the word that they're looking for, and they should cover, your introduction should cover your professional and your personal life, and that's how they kind of relate with you. And as Atul also mentioned, the PPC mock interviews, mock GDs, they're of really great help, as you get to sit in a GD as you're going to do later. So even the kind of topics that we get are so different and diverse that you get a kind of understanding of everything. So that's very nice.
Got it.
Another thing that I also noticed is that because it's a GenMan role, your PORs kind of hold a little bit more significance, because I was questioned a lot about various leadership positions, maybe as a member or as a head that I've held. So there was a lot of cross questioning about them as well.
Got it. So now that we have understood what you all did prior to the process started, so now let's come to the process. Usually the first rounds are related to CV shortlisting or some form that talks more about you, or there is some gamified assessment. So could you share your experience as to what was the process like? How did you tackle that process?
Yeah. So if I take
Yeah,
this ahead, so the process might include a detailed form which can include some behavioral questions as well. There can be a gamification round which might include games that is trying to look at that is trying to find out what kind of person you are, what is your risk-taking ability, if you are loyal enough or not, if you are telling the truth or not. So there can be various side of game which look at this kind of perspective, and they would try to find out a person that who is stable and who is truthful mostly, and whose values align with the company itself, which is very important. Beyond these two rounds, there can be there is mostly a chairman GD for general management company, and then again chairman GD is a bit different from the normal GDs that we take part in other companies. So, and beyond that, there can be a case round, detailed case round that you have to present a case, you have to answer the question, you have to solve a proper full-fledged business case, and followed by that, there will be a personal interview, mostly by the chairpersons or MD CEO level kind of persons taking interview from the company itself.
Got it.
For some other companies, it can also be started by a game round where they test you on various capabilities. Timing is also very important in the game round.
Okay.
And then there can be a psychometric test, which is basically to see if you will be a fit for the culture, for the company's culture. Try to be truthful, but keep your answers related to whatever values that company has, as he already said.
Okay.
And then there can be a GD round, which can be a proper case based. So in my case, we had like a 3 to 4 pager case, which we got like around 10 minutes to read. And there were a few questions at the end of case, and we had to, as a group, come at a consensus as to how we'll go further with that problem. And then the next round was the final PI round.
And are these cases related to your spec or
So
they are in general?
So they were related to the what new is happening in the company, and they wanted our suggestions, our recommendations on the problems that they're facing.
Yeah, in my case, the case was a general case that was given to all the participants. That was a case about another company and the problems that they were facing in the company itself. So everybody would have to come out with a business solution as to which transformative way that the path that company should take, and what are the challenges that they might face in each of the individual paths that they are taking.
So
you would
talking
like
about
to
like
add?
mostly the things are covered right now, but yeah, like we did have a GD round as well, a chairman GD round, and we had to take leadership in our particular case and drive the case further ahead. And when we are not the chairman, then we have to support the chairman and go ahead with that as well. So that was the pretty much aspect of it. So they do look at your behaviors both when you are a chairman and when you're not a chairman. And when you are a chairman, that is probably your limelight. So you get to think innovatively, drive the conversation as you like and want. And when you're not a chairman, then probably both how you engage as a person within the team, at the same time when you're listening also, how actively are you listening to the whole context matters a lot in the GD process. From a PI standpoint, what I personally felt more was that time is something that everyone values a lot. So these will be very short and crisp interviews that they will be having. More on a cultural fit aspect, I think that's what we mostly have experienced. And at the same time, what value are you as a differentiator that you're adding to the cohort compared to the others who are interviewing the process?
So 3 points I'll cover. One is the gamified round, or the process before we actually get to sit in front of the panelists, then the GD, and then the final interview. So in the gamified rounds for some company, what they actually thought, so what are we trying to do is essentially align ourselves to the values, but it actually shines what we think who we are as a person in some game or the other.
Okay.
So staying true to who you are is very important, not just aligning yourself and thinking of, okay, these are the values of the company and I just should be answering and playing according to these values. Because for other games, let's say you have a set of 5-7 games, whatever, right? For 3-4 games you'll be playing as you. But in the final game, you'll be thinking, okay, these are the values and this is what I have to answer accordingly.
So there will
So
be
they
a
don't
mismatch.
match. Exactly. So if they don't match, then of course you're a mismatch because you're not being truthful. Then coming to the GD round, so there are companies wherein we had to mug up the entire or kind of understand the entire case as a chairman, then come and sit with our colleagues, our batchmates, and then explain them that this is the entire case. So I think the GDs, the way how they are conducted were different, but the chairman, the concept remained the same. The first thing was that as in one company, you could not speak as a chairman. You could only direct. While you explain the problem statement, you could only direct that this is the right area that I want to explore, or you should be exploring, and this is not. While in the other one, you had to kind of also give your inputs. So you were asked all of those things. And actually consistently asked, okay, what do you think about it? Now you also had to drive, and as Atul mentioned, you had to ensure that everybody around you as a chairman is kind of feeling confident putting their points forth. And as somebody who's not a chairman, you had to ensure that you're not cutting somebody off, you're not being disrespectful as a general manager. And for what they look as a general manager, they kind of look for people who are not being disrespectful, who are, even if they're disagreeing, they're coming from a place of understanding and utmost respect for the other person's viewpoint, even if they don't agree with it at all. And then finally the PI, thankfully or luckily, I didn't get asked on any of my CV point. I just my entire introduction was something that they explored to the extreme end and asked questions which I didn't even think were possible. I got a question about how I could relate music to math, and the difference between achieving a number and seeing a number, something like that, because I am interested in math. So it all depends on how you drive your introduction and even the entire interview, because your attitude speaks for itself.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Coming as guys, now that we have discussed the entire process, can you shed some more light on how did you fill the form, how did you approach the questions, because it is quite comprehensive in many cases. So anybody, I think, can go.
I'll start.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so from the forms that I filled, there's one thing that helped a lot, which was PNG 64 essentially. So there are questions which are behavioral, and you've already done your behavioral questions, you've written them for PNG 64. There's one pro tip. Please write your PNG 64 answers and don't just mention scenarios. Please write extensive answers, and then because you can go back and take reference from that. And then because you have prepared those answers, you have a rough idea as to how to go about those behavioral questions as well. So you just copy paste, make some tweaks, and then maybe upload it there. So that kind of worked for me in forms for behavioral. And then the other part is just uploading your CV and then your personal details. So that's just common standard for everything.
So I don't have nothing much to add per se. Like basically whatever she has covered, I think everything else.
Another thing is that when the forms will be rolling out, there will be multiple forms in very less duration of time.
True.
And every company will have different questions, but you can tailor same answers for all the companies. So as she said, I really want to focus on this point. You have to prepare all those scenarios in advance, because one day before deadline, you will not be in the mental space to answer those questions. And you don't want to lose out on something just because you have not prepared a PNG before.
Yeah.
Also, one thing that I would like to say is that stay truthful while writing your PNG 64. Do not try to frame situations which you think will align with the question that is given in hand. If we look back in time, we'll definitely have a lot of stories from our work experience, from our past college days, undergrad days, that can fit into a situation very perfectly. And those are the answers that will actually give you points to talk about, points to discuss in the PI as well, not just in the form. So being truthful, staying honest while writing this PNG 64 answer is something that you must consider and do properly.
There's one thing from this. So as a fresher, I didn't have a lot to look back at. Even though I had a lot of ECAs and PORs, there's a lot that you can't relate to, and then there are questions which are aimed at the freshers, but you still, or for the freshers, but you still don't have answers to them because itna GA nahi hai. So there is some situation that you have to exaggerate, but it shouldn't sound impractical or just stretch out of proportion. So there's one pro tip: just reach out to somebody. They can be friends here, or your family members or somebody, your elder sister, brother, whatever siblings, and just have them go through your PNG 64. That helps you get an understanding as if this works or not, or if this sounds too blown out of proportion. So that
Got
works
it.
also.
In a sense, you should be able to defend it.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair. I would like to focus on one thing that most people have some preconceived notion about, that is the chairman GD. Many people feel that it is different from the actual GD. It is more tough to get through that round. So what was your experience on the actual day of performing the chairman GD? How did you analyze the case? How did you ensure that you are able to drive the GD? What are the qualities that you kept in mind while you were the chairman, acting as a chairman? So you can start from here.
Yeah, so as the point came out, there were different kind of chairman GD also being conducted by different companies. The concept was same, but the situation was different. So in one company, the panelists would call one of the chairmen and they would give them a case. The case is usually 7-8 lines long, and the chairman of that round will have to memorize the entire case, and it's all up to them how they are communicating it back to the team itself. So from then and there only you can structure your GD in a way that you want. So the end discussion or the end goal of each round as a chairman is to arrive at a solution or a position that where you are comfortable that yes, we as a team are going to do this kind of a thing. So the case might include a lot of vague informations as well, which might lead the conversation in a different direction. So you as a chairman can take the liberty and put only those points forward which you think are important for the discussion itself, and then proceed. So that was the case. A few things that one must consider while giving chairman GD is that the main spotlight, again, like it came out during our discussion, that main spotlight is you get when you are the chairman itself. So be very cautious enough that when you are the chairman, you have to perform your best. It's not that if you mess your chairman round, you won't get any other points. The entire process you will get to speak as a listener, you will get to speak good points, but it's the chairman part where you have to be really careful. You have to make sure that your GD is structured, that people are getting chance to speak their mind out. It shouldn't be like that someone is not able to speak. You as a chairman, it's your responsibility to let them speak. So they would look that it would get you extra brownie points and all. So and finally coming down to a conclusion, which is a must, I'd say, because that shows that you as a chairman has a capability to lead a team of high performing individual and narrow down to a solution. So that is something that they are looking at in my experience.
So in my case, I didn't have a chairman GD. I had a case-based round, which maybe I'll talk about after we complete chairman.
Sure.
So the experience that I had in the chairman GD was very similar to Rishikesh, but it was a little different as well. So in our particular case, there were 4 members in the team, and 4 of us were getting individual cases. But prior to that, so if there was one chairman, it was serially going around. So there was one chairman told beforehand, and all of us would get the case. We will all read and comprehend the case, while the chairman would lead the case. So we had 1 minute to read and that's 10 minutes to discuss on the case. So one thing I always, even when I was preparing for the mock GDs as well, I was always told people around me is to carry a watch with them. It's always really helpful. Time tracking is one of the most crucial elements in any GD as such. Even if another person is tracking for you, please be mindful of time. So in the GD process itself, again, the discussion drives around, like, any person will pull it out. Like Rishikesh said, ultimate goal is to understand the case and then drive to a solution. So in my particular case, when I got a chance to become the chairman, what I tried to understand from the very case element itself is, rather than writing out the whole case out in 1 minute, I tried to define first the key elements that I want to discuss in the whole agenda, like you clearly stated. So these were the 4-5 items that I mentioned out as the key parameters that I have to be discussing. And then I communicate to the team as well that I would be thinking the problem space, and then we will dive into the solution space. So given the 10-minute time we have, 8 minutes in the problem space and 2 minutes in the solution space. Then something that I could have differentiated out there also was given a different analogy to the whole case itself, so the perspective becomes much more easier for the person to communicate. Like in my particular case, it was some VR implementation of hospitality sector. So what I compared it towards was how you can think of as a movie itself. So trailers is something that you reach something beforehand in the movie, right? So this actually can be one segment of implementation. Watching the movie itself can be another implementation. Listening to its song can be another segment of it. And the reviews that you get afterwards can be another implementation of it. So the whole hospitality sector itself was send out in a direction that can be very easily understood by any person, and then thought about it. So that's, I guess, probably a differentiator that did stand out, I guess. And even I still remember the sheet that I had my case on it, my name and everything, the comments were written on and were passed on to the PI level as well. So they also read my case and did make up how a person I am and how I think.
So I got a chance to kind of sit in multiple chairman GDs, and there was one thing that I love talking to people. So that's one thing that I kind of brought in the GD. So there's not much pressure on me in GD. So I think that's one really good thing that I carry. There's a level of confidence and attitude with which you walk in, and then the way you greet them and the way your body language. So in GDs that works a lot. Generally what people think is that, you know, if I point out or I have like great points, then that works and I'll get through the GD. But it's not the sole purpose of a GD. It's a discussion at the end of the day, and that's what you're here for. As Rishikesh mentioned, towards the end you have to come to a solution. So every GD you have to have a certain body language, a sense of confidence and a sense of authority with which you're speaking, assertiveness, not rudeness. Then for chairman GDs you have to be very cautious. So a little bit context, I was a person who would never start or end, because I thought those are the make or breaks. I would go second. That was my comfortable spot. But in chairman GDs, I had to kind of counter that by, of course, starting and ending. So what I initially came up with was, I didn't want to lay out an entire structure. So instead, I wanted to just kind of brief or give out the objective of the entire case, and then let the entire panel decide where to lead it. Of course, I would give direction, but then kind of let them also come up with their own alternatives, options, solutions, and then towards the end have a summary of how the entire case went. As was extensively covered, I don't think I need to shed more light in it, because again, repeating it'll make it more redundant. But I think the chairman GDs, how they're different is the panelists get more time with you, more time to judge you. So how you're speaking, if you don't speak in one round, maybe it won't affect as much if you start aggressively speaking in the other rounds. That would tarnish your image, your entire persona in the eyes of the panelists, because they're genuinely looking for somebody who's giving people opportunities to speak up, who is an assertive leader, is not rude, is confident in how they are kind of putting themselves out there as well. And yeah, I think everything else was covered. But yeah, just be confident and listen to every point. Even if you have another point to make, just have your own identity in that point as well. So yeah.
Got it. Now quickly coming to the case-based GD, what was the experience during the actual?
So the entire process was around 20 to 25 minutes. It was a 3 to 4 pager case, and we had 2 questions in the end that we had to answer. And they gave us very strict instructions that 10 minutes you take to read the case, and then spend this 5 minutes each on each question. So the issue was, the case was projected on the projector in the class. So we did not know whether it'll stay on the projector. Everyone has a different reading speed in the group. So what if you're not done reading the page and someone says, okay, move to the next page. So my suggestion here is, if you're going first, then you can't do much about it. But if you're going second, just ask other people what is the format, how are the panelists projecting the case. That's very important. Do you have to note down the specifics in the time duration, or will it be the case will stay in the background and all? That's very important. Secondly, you need to take a watch, but in my case, they were only moderating the time, so we did not have that issue. Thirdly, I think it all boils around how you are. Obviously, we all know that you have to speak minimum at least 2 or 3 entries, about 40 seconds to 1 minute each. But what I observed was, more than what you speak and how you speak, your non-verbal cues is something that they were really looking at. So I made sure when I entered, I greeted everyone in the room. I sat on the chair after asking for permission, and I started the GD in my case, which was a little risky, but I just they were okay. So in the initial when GD started, there was a 10-minute silence. No one spoke anything. So I don't know what happened. I gave the structure to the entire GD, I think that is something that worked in my favor. And then I think I made a couple of entries in the second half of GD because I gave everyone equal opportunity to speak. You do not have to contradict anyone, because you have to ensure that GD does not become a fish market, especially in GenMan, because they're not looking for that. They want people who will listen to everyone and give others opportunity. Secondly, after my GD was ended, they had a small discussion with the entire panel where they asked, okay, what do you think could have been better in the GD? If you have any extra points to add. So I think in my case, they were purposely trying to put us in difficult situations where we have to contradict us. So one example that I would like to give was, they're like, in your GT, we just felt that everyone was bringing their own points. They were just using I. But this is a we thing. So it was a group discussion. Did you as a group discuss and come at a particular conclusion? And at that point of time, everyone started talking about, oh, this could have been better. I don't know what clicked in my mind. And I said that while these are the things that we were shortcoming, we did not do well. This is one thing that I think that we did particularly very well. And instantly I could see the smile on both of the panelists' face, and I think that worked in my favor. After this, I think this was a 5-minute discussion after the GT. They shortlisted 4 people from each panel, and they called them again for a small discussion where again they wanted to understand us a little bit better, how we think. And they just randomly put us in difficult, like they asked a situational based question which was like not led to anything. So a couple of questions that I would like to say was, first was, if you were the dean of the college, what is something that you would like to change? So the key is that you don't say actually that's not good about the college, but something that's not very relevant and it's easy. Second question they were asked us was, name one skill or one quality that you have in just 1 or 2 words that you have better than everyone else in the room. So you can name some skill or something like that, or maybe some adjective about you. And the last question they asked us, if you have to describe yourself in 1 word, what would that be? And you did not have time to think, so you have to be quick on your feet.
There's a couple more things. So coming off, of course, from our ideas, how one company took our entire GD was, so personal experience, I took my watch, but I forgot when exactly did my GD start in my chairman round. So I concluded 2 minutes prior to the time that was allotted for us. And it was a 3-member panel. So they were sitting right in this much distance away from us, and I was in the center. So he said, okay, so what are your thoughts? And I thought I finished right on point. So that guy asked, what are your thoughts? And I was just taken aback, as in, why do you want my thoughts all of a sudden? The GD ended, I concluded, everything happened, now why do you want to listen to me speak about it again? So then he was like, oh, your 2 minutes, you still have 2 minutes pending, so we just want to hear what you have to say. And it wasn't like I hadn't spoken in between, because in that particular or for that company, we had to, as chairmen, add whatever we wanted to also during the GD. So I was like, okay, repeating the same points and kind of twisting them, coming up with new points. And because you're, put on spot, you have to think, about the company, and because it was a company-specific kind of a case, small thing. And coming on spot, I was like, okay, this is weird. Towards the end, because it was a 3-member panel, the entire discussion ended very early on. So these guys then went on asking us for an elevator pitch. And because they were coming, they thought of the question right off the bat. They were like, in 30 seconds now conclude or tell us about yourself. And then the 30 seconds became, okay, now take 1 minute to do it. So we knew that they also hadn't prepared for it. And because we were the last panel, we had to kind of end it with a bang. So one tip for that is, have 1 minute, 1.5 minute kind of myself TMA wise prepared, which cover your entire life journey, your professional, personal, as I earlier mentioned. And there were moments in other people's rounds when I talked to my friends sitting for the same company's GD. The panelists were asking them questions in between the GD. So what do you think? So they were just checking responsiveness. They were just checking how the other people perform when they're put on spot. So those are also things that you need to kind of keep in mind.